All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. So go ahead and get your questions posted in there. If you have a question, go ahead and post it in there. It'll be, if you're on your mobile device, it may be below the video where you can post your questions. If you're on a bigger computer, like a desktop or laptop or something like that, it may be on the right-hand side of the video. So go ahead and get your questions posted in there, and I will answer them. So it looks like we'll start here with Gord B. Gord B says, when playing from fairway bunkers, say a good lie, flat, or a bit uphill, how would you hit a hybrid? That's going to be tough sledding to hit a hybrid out of a fairway bunker. The reason is that when you hit out of a bunker, you really have to make sure that you get ball first contact. And if you're someone who doesn't have a ton of forward shaft lean, it's going to be difficult to get that strike higher on the club face, high enough on the club face to be able to get it up and out of there. Typically, you're going to be hitting your fairway bunker shots, especially if you're someone who doesn't have a release that's really out in front and a lot of forward shaft lean. Typically, you're going to be hitting those pretty thin to get them out of there very good. So when you hit it thin, the ball comes out lower. And a hybrid already doesn't have a lot of loft on it typically, unless it's a high lofted hybrid. If it's a high lofted hybrid, let's say it's like a 6 hybrid or a 7 hybrid, you'll be able to get it up and out of there depending on how big of a lip you have in front of you. But if it's like a 3 hybrid or even like a 4 hybrid, that's probably not going to be enough loft to get it up and out of there. So you may just need to take the club that's going to get you up and out of the bunker. That's the most important thing. Even if it leaves you a little bit short, that's going to be better than hitting the lip of the bunker. In fact, I think that Tommy Fleetwood went through that similar kind of thing. He thought that he could get a 7 iron up out of there, and it hit the lip of the bunker, and he ended up, it probably cost him the tournament. Really, probably that shot there. In a sense, because if he would have had that back, he probably would have been right there to win it. So that's kind of, you're most likely not. Now, if you have it to where there's no lip in front, there's no lip, you can get it right up out of there. Then you'll be able to, you just hit it the same way that you normally would, the same way you would any other shot. Basically, I have a fairway bunker. This would be what I would recommend doing. I have a fairway bunker. The only adjustment other than out of the fairway, if you're taking a full swing, I have a fairway bunker. Number one, what I would do is I'd choke up on the club a little bit. And the reason for that, if I grab a club here, the reason why I would choke up a little bit is because it's going to give you a little bit more control. So just choking up just like an inch on the club, that's going to give you a little bit more control of it, because you have to be pretty spot on out of the bunker. If you get just a little bit of that sand before the golf ball, it's going to take a lot out of it. The face is going to fill up with sand, and you're just not going to be able to transfer very much energy to the golf ball. That club's just going to want to dig a little bit. It's just going to be take some extra club, and I would choke up on it a little bit to give you a little bit more control. The next thing I would do is I would just play the ball back where you normally would. So typically, you're going to be playing the ball off the turf straight down from the lead ear. So that's going to be easier to get that ball first contact as you're coming through there. And then I would just take, dig in a little bit, give yourself a little bit of stability, because usually bunkers, part of the reason why they're difficult is because it's unstable ground, right? It's loose sand. So you can be moving around a little bit. It makes it a little bit more difficult to have control. So dig your feet in just a little bit to get a little bit more stability. The other thing that does is that helps you feel if it's hard sand, firm sand, or anything like that. If it's soft sand, you got to make sure you get that ball first contact. If it's hard sand, you might be able to get away with hitting just a hair behind the golf ball, but you still want to make sure that you get that ball first contact. And then you just take a swing like you normally would. So that's what I'd recommend doing. A hybrid, because it's really not a lot of loft, it's going to be difficult to get up and out of there. So, I would practice that to see how high it gets up out of there. Basically taking those things like I talked about, using that technique like I just talked about, and see how it comes up and out of there. And that's what I would do for sure. All right. So it looks like we got some questions posted in here now. All right, so Cameron K says, I'm having difficulty getting my hands higher over my shoulder on my backswing, which I assume is making it harder to shallow the club on the downswing, or instead I come down too steep. Any suggestions? So let me read that again. I'm having difficulty getting my hands higher over my shoulder on my backswing, which I assume is making it harder to shallow the club on the downswing, as I come down too steep. Any suggestions? So you're talking about getting the arm higher like this, getting the arms higher like that. I assume that's what you're talking about. Now, that actually doesn't make it more difficult to shallow out the club. It's actually typically more difficult to shallow the club the higher your hands get, because if you're swinging flat like this club is already in a shallow position. You don't have to shallow it. So that's why a lot of people, you see the single plane swing. A lot of people, they swing really flat because it's easier to get that club onto plane, to shallow it in the downswing. It's easier to make that happen. So that's not going to make it more difficult to shallow out the club. It's actually, the club's already in a shallow position. The problem is that if you don't get the hands up higher, it's harder to get any speed. If you're really flat and you're like this, it's going to be hard to get a lot of speed from this position. It's why you don't see a lot of tour players there, because it's really, really important to have speed to compete. If you have a lot of speed already, then maybe it's completely fine to swing flat. But if you're someone who's looking for distance, I recommend getting more vertical. Now, it could be a physical limitation there that could be going on. You could have some tightness in the lats or in between your shoulders and things like that. If you have a hard time just lifting up your arms straight up, doing the touchdown signal, if you have trouble doing that, then that may be a physical limitation that's going on there as well. A way that you can kind of test this is you can actually put your back up against a wall. So I don't really have a wall here that I can go, but if you put your back up against the wall and make sure that your spine is flat up against that, a way that you can check that is you can take a club and you can put it in between your wall, in between you and the wall, and you can push that up against that. And then what you do is you put your arms straight out in front of you, and you got to push and try to get your thumbs, keep your arms dead straight, and go straight back. If you bend your arms, that's a fail, okay? So keep the arms dead straight, go back like that. And you can see I can almost touch the wall. I'm barely getting pretty darn close. So I'm keeping my arms straight. I'm coming pretty close to touching the wall. So I don't have any issue with getting there. But if you're someone who, now if you arch your back, I can do it if I arch my back very, very easily. But if you keep your back up against the wall, flat up against the wall here, that's why I said put the club in between your wall, because if you feel the club come out, that means you're arching your back. So if you put that club in between your back and the wall, you're keeping your spine back up against that, and you go like this. If you're only getting to about right there, that means you've got a physical limitation. So you may need to go to like a physical therapist or a personal trainer or a chiropractor, maybe. Somebody in the fitness industry to get you to find what the point is that's stopping you from doing that. So do that. It's called a lat test. It could mean that you have tightness in your lats. It could mean that I know the guy, the co-founder, Top Speed Golf, Josh, he had an issue with this. He could only bring his arms up about that much. And he actually had something going on in between his shoulder blades, and he had to take a therapy ball and like rub that out every single day. And then eventually he was able to get his arms all the way up. So there could be a physical limitation there going on. It could be that you're just not comfortable getting the club up in that position. You know how to swing down from this position right here and not from here. So intuitively, you just don't want to get the club up there because you don't know how to get down there from the top of the swing. So what you got to do is you got to force yourself to do it, essentially. If it's not a physical limitation, you really just got to focus, okay, on the backswing, I'm going to get my hands up here, and I don't care if I don't know how to come down from there. I'll figure it out. Really, really focus on getting the hands up there. A good drill that you can do that makes it kind of easy to get into that position is you can just do the lifting part of the swing and not do the rotation. So do the lifting part first, and then do the rotation. So the way that you would do that is get in your address position here, hinge the club up to 90 degrees, and now you're just going to lift this club straight up over, if you're right-handed, you're going to lift it straight up over your right shoulder. So it looks something like this. Hinge it up. Now I'm going to keep my lead arm relatively straight, and I'll show it to you from the face on as well. Lead arm relatively straight, bend at 90 degrees, and I'm just going to lift that over my right shoulder here. So now you can see that's what the golf swing is if there's no rotation. That's all it is. It's just that. That's all it is. So if you look at it from this angle, I'll hinge the club up. I'm going to put up over my right shoulder here. So you can see I'm lifting this club up. My lead arm is relatively straight, and I'm putting it up over my right shoulder. So now watch if I do that over my right shoulder and then I add the rotation. Look at where I am at the top of the swing now. I've rotated my hips, rotated my shoulders. I'm in that perfect position. So you can work on just getting in that right position just by doing that. Now, if you have trouble, if you can only go like this, you may be looking at a physical limitation. You know, maybe you can only go like that. Now it turns into that, right? So maybe you have a physical limitation. You can check that by doing the that lat test that I talked about. But yeah, you can, if you're looking to get that fixed, if there is a physical limitation, unfortunately, as a golf instructor, it's not my expertise. I won't be able to help you with that, but I would look at a fitness professional, a chiropractor, maybe, a personal trainer, a physical therapist, something like that, may be able to help you to get that worked out a little bit better. All right. So Nicholas P says, besides variance drills that improve skill at finding the center of the face, what are other variables in the swing that promote more of a centered strike? I'm sure there are a ton of factors, but what are the most significant parts of the swing that promote a centered strike? Is it being on plane? Strike is king. So that's all really working on these days. So really, as far as the Top Speed Golf system is concerned, it's going to be stable fluid spine. That's really number one. If you're moving all over the place with your spine, reverse spine angle at the top or anything like that, man, it's going to be hard to get it in the center of the face. And plus, your eyes are moving around everywhere. It's going to be hard to be coordinated enough to hit it in the center of the face. So nice and angled away at address. So if I'm at address here, I want to be nice and angled away with my spine. If you look at center of my hips, center of my shoulders, I'm about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. As I go up to the top of the swing, again, I want to be about 6 to 8 degrees angled away here. And then as I come into contact, I want to be a little bit more angled away in that 18 to 25 degree range as I'm coming in. So if you are getting to where you're like this, maybe at address, and then you go up to the top and you're like this, and then you go like that in the downswing, it's going to be really, really difficult to hit in the center of the face. So I'd say, as far as technique is concerned, number one is a stable fluid spine. It's the number one key to consistency in the golf swing, is having that stable fluid spine. So if you're looking at your spine angle and you're seeing that it's all over the place, then that would be a good indication of why you're not hitting it in the center of the face. Now, club plane definitely does play a role in hitting it in the center of the face. If you are not swinging on plane, it can make it difficult to hit it in the center of the face. And that's because the club is working across the ball instead of straight into the ball. So if you are swinging extreme into out, typically people who swing extreme into out struggle with heel strikes or even shanks. And the reason is that the hosel is working right toward the ball as it's coming through there. You got to time that perfectly to get it in the center of the face. So if you're swinging extreme into out, you're struggling with shanks, that might be why. Now, if you're someone who swings really over the top, conversely, you may struggle with toe strikes because that club is working across the ball. It's going to be, typically the way you time it, you're going to get it in the toe a lot. So that may be what's going on there as well. So plane, definitely a big part of it. Stable fluid spine, definitely a big part of it. Stable fluid spine is a big part of plane as well. If your spine is not in the correct position, it's going to be hard to get that club to swing on plane. So it's all kind of connected together. But I would say stable fluid spine for sure. If your stable fluid spine is good and you're swinging over the top or too far under plane, That's going to play a role as well. Those are probably the two biggest things that I'd be looking at, just to name a couple for sure. All right. So Daniel W says, "Hi Q, I'm trying to develop a low pitch shot with max backspin. Does the loft of the club determine the distance and the club head speed determine the backspin? Could you discuss the theory behind this shot?" So basically how that works, let me grab a wedge here. So you typically want as much loft as possible. Basically what gives you spin is the difference between what's called spin loft, basically, which is the difference between your angle of attack and the dynamic loft. And the dynamic loft is the loft that you're presenting to the ball at impact. So you want to de-loft the club a little bit, and you want to, which is going to take, so this is a 50-degree wedge. This would be a wedge that you would use to get a lot of spin. Typically, you'd use somewhere between a 56 and a 60 to get a lot of spin, or maybe even a 64 to get a lot of spin. But basically, you want to de-loft the face a little bit, and that's going to give you more compression. So the more compression you have, the more friction that you can have, and the more spin you're going to be able to create. So a couple things that you're going to need to do to make sure that you get spin. Number one, you got to have a clean club face. You can't have dirt or grime or anything in your grooves on the club face, because what gives the spin, part of what gives the spin is not necessarily the grooves grabbing the ball. That's not what gives you spin. What gives you spin is the surface area that the ball hits, and then if there's anything getting in between the face and the ball. If there's anything getting in between the face and the ball, it's not going to spin as much. So we need to have that nice clean face so that it gives you lots of spin. In fact, Ping sent Clay a grooveless wedge, and we were hitting shots with it. And you really, if it's in dry conditions and you're not getting anything between the ball and the face, it's the same amount of spin as you do with a grooved wedge. It's really the same amount. So it's really all about, it's not the grooves that necessarily give you spin. It's the grooves that repel dirt and water and debris away a little bit better. Now, if there's water involved, or if there's grass getting in between the face and the ball, the grooves do much better. And that's why they're on there. But you really need to make sure that you have a nice clean face here. The second piece is that you got to make ball first contact to get a lot of spin. You cannot hit the ground at all before the golf ball. Now, after the golf ball, you can hit it, but before the golf ball, you cannot hit the ground. And because when you hit the ground, like I was saying, debris, water, moisture gets on the club face. That gets in between the face and the ball, and you're going to it's not going to spin as much. The next thing is you want to hit it on the lower grooves. That's how you're going to get that low shot, and that's how you're going to get that spin on there. So the reason why it goes lower is because when you hit it lower on the grooves, the club will actually twist down a little bit, which de-lofts it, and that makes the ball come out lower. And why it gives it more spin is because when you hit it lower on the grooves, something called gear effect happens, because the face twists down. The ball will actually crawl up the face a little bit, which adds spin. So thin for spin. If you hit it on those bottom couple grooves, it's going to give you a little bit more spin. So that's really what it comes down to is clean the face. You're going to be taking your normal pitch type of shot. Use plenty of loft. Clean the grooves. Hit it thin. Hit it lower on the face. Make sure you get ball first contact and get some forward shaft lean so you get some good compression on there. And that's going to allow you to get lots of spin. So the way that you would set up to do that would look something like this. I like to preset open my hips. So what that means is instead of lining up to the ball like this, if I grab a ball here, instead of lining up to the ball, let me actually angle this down a little bit more. There we go. So instead of setting up to the ball dead squared up like this and taking a pitch shot like that, a lot of times it's just too hard to get the body opening up. I'm going to tend to want to release this club right at the ball. So what I like to do is I actually like to open up my body already so that I can get some forward shaft lean and some compression on this ball and release that club out in front. That makes it a lot easier to do that. Now, keep in mind, when you do that, you're going to need to feel like you're swinging more into out because I've turned my body this way now, right? Instead of like this, I'm basically swinging the club more in front of my body. Now I'm swinging it more to the side of my body because otherwise, if you go like that, if you cut across the ball, you're not going to get the spin on there, and you're going to tend to want to release early anyway. So get this club working more into out. It's going to feel like you're working more into out. Come in nice and shallow. So don't play this ball back here because if you do that, you're going to chop down into the golf ball. Now that may make it come out lower, and you may get some nice spinny shots when you do that. The problem is that your margin for error is so thin. I'm just going to have a hard time coming in here and making ball first contact every time. I'm going to top it a lot. I'm probably going to chunk it a lot. I just have to time this with the golf ball at the same time. So get that about in the middle of your stance, maybe a little bit back of the middle of your stance. Swing into out and get this club working. Get some forward shaft lean and hit it nice and thin. And if you do that, that's going to allow you to get it to where you get that low spinner kind of shot. And it make sure everything's kind of coming through together. And that's going to allow you to get that spin on here. I don't have the space to be able to do that in here, but that's basically what you're doing. You're just taking that nice thin strike in there. If you get it high on the face, you hit any of the ground before the golf ball, you're going to end up without that thin or without that spinny shot. It's going to take that spin off of there. All right. So Richard H says, at times I get off balance at the top of my backswing when I try to get quick in the transition and downswing. Any thoughts on a correction? So it sounds like you're probably standing up in the backswing, meaning you're probably coming up and leveling your shoulders here at the top. And when you get like that, you're typically just going to chop down into the golf ball. So work on getting those shoulders at a steeper angle as you go up to the top. So a couple of good feelings that I really like there is one, I don't know if you've read Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons, but I think there was a great visual in that book where he talked about the plane of glass on the shoulder. So basically he imagined that he had a plane of glass sitting on top of his shoulders. His head were through a hole in the glass, and it sat right on top of his shoulders, and it went down to the golf ball. And he visualized his shoulders working on that plane of glass. So if you imagine if your shoulders are coming out level and you come out like that, my shoulders going right into the glass there. So if my shoulders are working down more like on the, it's an exaggeration. It's not really what's happening, but it's a great visual to kind of help you. There's also a great drill called the shoulder to shoulder drill on the website, which helps you to stay in your posture. Also, the wall drill is a good one. I'll tell you where you can find these to stay in your posture, because what's going on here is if for the wall drill, typically when you stand up, when your shoulders get level, your backside is moving forward in the backswing. So if you watch here, if I have my backside kind of up against this vent, the edge of this vent here, if I'm going up and I'm leveling my shoulders, you can see my backside is moving off the vent. So in the wall drill, what you're doing is you're pushing your backside toward the vent. So you can see there, I have to stay in my posture. If I stand up, I'm going to fall backwards. And if I get my backside moving off of the wall there and I'm leaning forward, I'm going to fall forward. So it's all about trying to stay in balance. So if you push your hip back, you're going to have to bend over more to stay in balance. If you push your hip forward, you're going to need to stand up more to stay in balance. So that's basically what's going on there. So work on that wall drill. I'll tell you where you can find that here in a minute. But that's a good one. And also the shoulder to shoulder drill. The shoulder to shoulder drill, you're just taking a club and you're putting it right across your shoulders here. Really, really important the way you put this club on your shoulders. Watch how I have this club on here. It's nice and high up on my shoulders. I see too many people, when you tell them to put a club across their shoulders, this is what they do. They go like that. Well, what I can do is I can swing my shoulders level, but then I can go like this and make myself think that I have make myself think that I have my shoulders steep, and that's not really what's going on there. Is you're just manipulating the club. So get this club really high up on your shoulders. There's a bone right here on your shoulders, right on top of your shoulders. That's where the club should be sitting, right on top of that bone. Should be going right across your collarbone here, and that's going to get you. I can still move my shoulders around, but it's not the same as what I had it down here in my elbow pits when I can go like this, right? You need to get nice and high up there on the shoulders. And now when I turn up, I can really see where my shoulders are pointing to. So that's what I would recommend doing. I can still go like that, but you're going to really feel if you do that. Whereas with your arm, you may not really feel that as much. So get it nice and high on your shoulders. Cross your arms in front. It's too hard to do this. It's just not comfortable to do this. Cross your arms in front just like this, and that's going to get you in the right position there. So do that to get the club in the right position. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn down. Shoulders are going to be angled down toward the ball in the backswing, and then same thing in the downswing. And you can work through that drill as well. So to get to the shoulder to shoulder drill, just search the words shoulder to shoulder, 3 words, shoulder and the word 2, not the number 2. So shoulder, T-O, shoulder. On the website, the way you search things on the website, very, very easy. If you're on a, like your computer or desktop or laptop or whatever it might be, in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see that search box. It's going to say search this website. That's going to say search. Click that, put shoulder to shoulder in there. If you're on a mobile device, there's a little icon at the top right corner. It's 3 horizontal lines. Click on that. That'll expand a menu. If you scroll to the bottom of that menu, you'll see the search box right there. You can search shoulder to shoulder. For the wall drill, where you're focusing on pushing your backside up against the wall, just search the word wall and you'll find it, W-A-L-L. Again, for each device, depending on what you're using, is where you'll find the search engine. But just search the wall, just wall, and you'll find that wall drill there. So David S. says, talk more about weight shift back to the target starting when the arms are parallel. Talk about how fast the shift back to the target should be and how when the left knee and hip should be over the ankle. All right, so what we're talking about here is the weight shift and when that should be happening. How fast is happening is really relative to the person. If you're a faster swinger, it's going to be happening faster. If you're slower, it's going to be happening slower. So it's not an exact time or speed that everyone's going to be doing. Everyone's going to be a little bit different there. But basically, what a lot of people don't realize is that weight shift, that momentum shift, is actually happening in the backswing. It's happening at the very, very top of the backswing. So I challenge you, go look at tour players on YouTube. Go look at Brooks Koepka, Adam Scott, Tiger Woods. Go look at all of them. What you're going to see is as they're going up to the top, they're loading up. And as they get up toward the top of their swing, you're going to see a shift moving forward. So if you see here at my outlet here on the wall, you can see as I'm getting up to the top here, I'm moving toward that outlet as I'm getting up to the top of the swing. And now I'm at the top of my swing. I've got pressure in my lead foot, and I can lead with my lower body. If I get up to the top of the swing and I don't have any, I'm just fully loaded up on my trail side, and I'm starting my downswing, I'm just going to swing all arms in the downswing. It's too late. I'm not going to be able to rotate my hips. The arms are just flying in front of the body there. So the best drills to work on this are the step drill. And the step drill, the reason why it's the best drill is because it forces you to kind of do this in the swing. It's an exaggeration. It's earlier than what you would actually do in the swing, but it's to help you get into those better positions. So start with your feet together. Start this club going back, and you're going to get your momentum moving forward as you're completing that backswing. Now, when this is happening depends on the length of your swing, too. If your swing is only this long, then it's not going to be happening right there. It's going to be happening a little bit sooner. You're going to need to get your weight sooner to the shift sooner. If your backswing's way up here, you have your hands way above your head, then it's going to be happening somewhere in here. So it really depends on how long your swing is, but it's happening in that last part of the backswing is basically when that's happening. So you need to get that momentum shift moving forward, work on that step drill. It's not going to be the same for everybody. Depends on the length of your swing, depends on how fast you swing. There's a lot of variables going on there. So there's no cut and dry answer for when that's going to be happening. Now, when you're going to be over your lead knee, again, it depends on how wide your stance is. If you have a very wide stance, you're probably never going to be over. You're probably never going to have your knee over your ankle until you're all the way into the full finish. If you have a very narrow stance, it may be over your lead ankle throughout most of the swing. So again, no cut or dry answer there. Unfortunately, it's just there's a lot of variables that are going on there. So keep that in mind. It's really just a matter of getting that weight shift, moving to your lead side at the right time. If you work through this drill I'm going to talk about here in a second, the step drill, that's going to get you in the right position. So just work through that drill. The best way to find that drill is just to search the word downswing. We just talked about searching on the website a minute ago. Again, if you're on a computer, laptop, desktop, whatever it might be, it's going to be in the upper right-hand corner. Just search the word downswing. And if you're on a mobile device, click that 3 horizontal lines icon, expand that menu, scroll down to the bottom of that. You'll see the search window there. Just search the word downswing. And the video is called How to Start the Downswing. And Clay goes over the step drill in a lot of detail in that video. But basically what you're doing is you're starting with your feet together. And as soon as you start this swing going back, you're stepping forward. So that's forcing you to get that feeling of the momentum going forward. You want to get that foot on the ground before you complete this backswing, but you want to make sure that you're completing the backswing. A big mistake I see people make with this drill is they start to go and they just stop right there, right? And then they come down. You need to make sure that you're completing your backswing. Now, it may not be the big full backswing because we're exaggerating things, but you want to make sure that you're completing it to the best of your ability, not just stopping right here. If your normal swing is up here, you may only be able to get to right there. You're not going to stop right here and swing through. So work on that timing of it and get that right so that you can get the most out of the drill. But work on that step drill. That's going to be the best one to get you to where you want to go. All right. So David C says, I don't tee the ball high, but when I use foot spray on my driver, the ball marks were really high on the face. How low can the ball be teed, and what else could be causing this? So what's probably happening is your club is coming down and bottoming out near where the golf ball is. So I don't have a driver in here, so I won't be able to show you. But basically, this club comes down and it reaches a low point and then works back up. When we're hitting our driver, we want that club, if my fist is the ball here, we want that club to come down, reach a low point, and then work up into the golf ball, right? So what's likely happening with you is your club's coming down, it's reaching its low point at the golf ball and then working up after the golf ball. So that's most likely what's going on. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but that's most likely what's going on. So it could be you're playing the ball too far back in your stance. We need to give that club space to come down and then work up into the ball. So if you're playing the ball in the middle of your stance or just a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance, that it's not giving the club, you're not going to be able to get the club to work down and up into the golf ball. So the best way to tee up the ball is just outside your right shoulder, your left shoulder. So if you're a right-handed golfer, just outside your lead shoulder is where you're going to want to be. That's where that ball position is. Because typically the club's going to be bottoming out somewhere around your armpit, somewhere in this area. So now if we have this space right here to get that club to work up into the golf ball, that's going to be ideal. So that make sure that you're teeing the ball up in the correct position there. So tee it up just outside the lead shoulder. That's going to get you to where you have space to work up into the golf ball. It could be that your compression line is too vertical or even leaning toward the target as you're coming in. So if I'm coming in like this, my compression line being the line that goes up from my lead ankle, my lead hip, and my lead shoulder, if that is leaning forward or too vertical, again, that's going to move my low point forward. Remember, I talked about how the club typically bottoms out somewhere around that armpit area. Well, if I'm leaning forward here, or my compression line is vertical, that's moving my armpit forward here, and that's moving my low point forward near more where the golf ball is. We need to make sure that we're coming into contact and we're leaning away from the target, especially with the driver, because that's going to allow us to hit up into the golf ball. So you may need to look at your compression line on video and see where you're at with your driver. See where your ball position is. because most likely what's going on is that you're bottoming out the club at the ball instead of bottoming out and then working it up into the ball. So some ways that you can make it a little bit easier to get that compression line angled away. One is playing the ball further up in the stance. Two, depending on if it's already where it should be, don't move it up any further. But if you have it in the middle of your stance, move it up to outside the shoulder. The other thing is taking a little bit wider stance. If you take a little bit wider stance, it's going to be easier to stay behind the ball and get that club working up into the ball. So I'd be looking at your compression line there. If you want to work on the compression line, you can go to the compression line course on the website. It's very easy to get to. Click the instruction tab at the top of the screen there. That's going to take you to the screen where you'll be able to, or that'll expand the menu. Click Top Speed Golf System and then click the compression line from there to get started. Work on that compression line, getting that more angled away. All right, so David E says, a lot of Davids in here today. David F, David C, David E. All right, so David E says, the spine tilt has caused me to start pulling my iron shots. Am I overdoing it? It's hard to say without seeing your swing. But, I mean, a pull is caused by the path being out to in, so the club working in this direction and my club face being closed at contact. So what I would try to do is try to get the club working more in to out. Now, typically, if you have your spine angled away, it's going to be easier to swing more in to out. So it's hard to say without seeing your swing. I would imagine you're not really doing what you think you're doing. So look at your swing on video and see really what's going on there. See if you're really getting your spine angled away, and to see if you're angled away at the top, and if you're more angled away into contact. Because if you are overdoing that, it's really hard. Like imagine, okay, so let's say I'm really angled away. It's really hard for me to swing over the top from this position. So this is what that would look like. If I'm really angled away, that's basically I'm going like that. That's just, it's not a very common thing. It could be what you're doing, but typically when you're more angled away, you're swinging more from the inside, which isn't going to cause a pull. That's going to be a push typically. So it's hard to say without seeing your swing what's going on there, but a pull is caused by swinging out to in with a closed face. Try to hit a push. Swing in to out with an open face. Try to hit it out to the right, assuming that you're you didn't say if it was going left or right, but assuming you're right-handed, try to hit a push out to the right, and that's going to be from swinging too much into out with the face open. That's what I would try to feel like that you're doing. So your right shoulder or your trail shoulder, feel like that's kind of dropping down and your shoulders are closed off here and you're swinging out into out through contact and you're leaving that face open. So feeling like your palm of your hand staying pointed up to the sky through contact, that's going to help you leave the face open to hit that push. And then if you overdo it, then just ease off of those feelings a little bit. All right, so Nicholas P says, in regards to the stable fluid spine, what are some of the biggest reasons for hitting it fat when maintaining your head behind the ball at impact? So not getting that proper weight shift and then just dropping that trail shoulder down. So if I have this spine angle and I don't shift my weight forward and I just go like that, I'm just going to stick that club right into the ground. So we need to make sure that we're getting our weight shift to our lead side and rotating through contact so that I don't stick the club into the ground. So the weight shift is the biggest thing there. So make sure that you're getting that good weight shift to your lead side, and that's going to allow you to get that ball first contact. It could be that you're playing the ball too far forward as well. If you got the ball too far forward in your stance, you're going to hit it fat a lot of times because you're just not going to be able to get to it. So if you're really, really struggling, if you're in the good spine angle there and you're struggling with those fat shots, I'd recommend working through the Stop Chunking and Topping course. That'd be my best suggestion, because that course is all about getting you loaded up properly and in that good spine angle, and then also getting that good weight shift to the lead side. So it's a good possibility you're not getting a good weight shift. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but a really good possibility there that you're not getting that good weight shift to your lead side. So I'd make sure that you're doing that. And that's going to be the Stop Chunking and Topping course. Best way to get to that course, click the house icon at the top of the page there. That's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses on the website. It'll say Top Speed Golf System course progress. If you scroll down through there, you'll see the Stop Chunking and Topping course. click that and start working through those drills. Get that good weight shift to the lead side so you don't chunk it. All right, so Daniel W. says, when lining up a putt, I've noticed there's a difference in how the putt line appears from behind the ball and the address of my putt. My friends say to line up from behind the ball and trust it. Are they right? Basically, you have to find what suits your eye. So if you're set up to the ball putting and you think you're putting it one direction, but the reality is that you're lined up in another direction, you need to fix that. You need to be comfortable over the ball. Part of it is, getting lined up, but then to know when you're standing over the ball that you are lined up. So what I'd recommend doing is actually go and find a dead straight putt. I actually have a tendency myself to line up left. It's just the way that my eyes kind of work. So I have to kind of calibrate myself to get I miss a lot of putts. Whenever I start missing some putts left, I know that my alignment is getting off there. So now practice my putting very much just because I don't think it's very fun. I'd rather practice the longer clubs. And I haven't made, the only thing the problem I have with putting typically is that I just miss left because I line up wrong. So every now and then I'll calibrate that. So find a dead straight putt, use like a putting mirror or something like that, something to get you to where you're lined up. You can take 2 alignment sticks and create a track. Just find like a 6 to 8 foot putt somewhere in there and really have these alignment rods out there showing you that this is a dead straight, you're lined up correctly. And if you hit enough of those, it's going to help you to get an overall better feeling. You can also take a chalk line, go to a hardware store, get a chalk line, find a dead straight putt, run that chalk line, snap the chalk, and you'll see the line of the putt all the way in there as well. That can help you to get your alignment down. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Find that dead straight putt, get some alignment aids out there, clubs, alignment sticks, putting mirror, whatever it might be, line it up with the hole so you see all these lines. And then you realize, okay, well, I was lined up way left or way right. It's going to correct that for you. And if you take enough putts and get more comfortable with that alignment, it's going to ingrain itself and it's going to become that way out on the course. So that's what I would recommend doing. But I don't understand what you mean by stand behind the ball and line up the putt. Is that where you would you'd stand like this and then step in? Not a real big fan of that because that's not going to stay the same. No matter what you try, that's going to be moving around. So what I'd recommend doing is line up the putt from over the top of the putt, get comfortable with knowing that this is straight, and then you'll end up trusting it. All right. So we got about 15 minutes or so left. Go ahead and keep posting your questions in there, and I'll keep answering them. All right, so Thomas O says, hi, Q. My short irons are right on the mark from 125 in, but when I get the longer irons, I'm not consistent, and it goes right. So one thing to keep in mind here, and I mentioned this, a lot of people tell me, hey, my short clubs are great, my long clubs are not good. Just by nature, longer clubs are going to be harder to hit. For a couple of reasons. One, they're longer, so they're harder to control. And 2, they have less loft. So when they have less loft, it has less spin on it. If you ever wonder why it's hard to hit a big old slice with a wedge versus a hybrid, because there's a lot more loft on a wedge. So the backspin, whenever you hit it, there's backspin that stabilizes the ball flight. The more backspin that you have, it makes it less apt to want to tilt. Because when the ball is spinning, so if I use this here, pretend that this lacrosse ball is a golf ball, and then this is the spin axis, right? So the ball spins on an axis, and it's like the wings of an airplane. So the more backspin this has, the less this axis wants to be able to tilt. It doesn't mean that it won't tilt. It just means it's less likely that it's going to be able to tilt. So the less backspin you have on it, the more a gust of wind is going to be able to make this tilt. So that's basically what's going on there. That's why it's a little bit harder to do that. And also, you're also hitting it a further distance, right? So you might be 5 degrees offline with your wedge, but it doesn't go off by that much because it's just not going very far. But if you're 5 degrees offline With your 6-iron, it's going to be a much bigger difference. The ball is going much further. It's going to be it's going to be a much bigger difference there in how far off it gets. So keep that in mind, is that you may not necessarily actually be hitting them worse. It's more that it's just further. So that's the way it is. So it's hard to say exactly what's going on. It could be every now and then I run into something where people do something different with their shorter clubs versus their longer clubs. That's fairly rare, but what you can do is you can look on video and see what's going on there. Look at your video with a wedge with 125 and in kind of club. Look at your swing on video face on down line, and then take your longer club that you struggle with and look at your swing on video face on down line and compare the two. See what's going on as far as the Top Speed Golf system is concerned with your swing. See if your spine is stable. See if you're getting a good shoulder turn. See if you're getting lag. See if you're getting all these pieces. And if there's really no difference between the swings, it's really just a matter of, it's just a longer club. It's harder to hit. So you just need to get more practice with it and get more comfortable with it hitting the longer clubs is most likely what needs to happen there. So Bob L says, should I feel a crunch in the backswing as I turn and keep posture? A crunch. Well, you're going to feel like you're turning, like there's some side bend here, because as I go up to the top, you're going to feel some side bend here in your side. So it does kind of feel like you're kind of crunching into your lead side. I don't know if I like that word crunch, because it almost sounds like things are cracking and things like that. That's not, you shouldn't have anything like that, or any pain or anything like that. But you may feel like you're kind of turning into your side here, and that's the side bend. So imagine if you were just to stand straight up like this, and you were to take your lead hand and try to bend down to kind of touch your knee. That's what you're going to kind of feel in the backswing, is that kind of that crunch in your side here as you're going up to the top of the swing. And then the downswing, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to feel that right here. You're going to have that side bend in the downswing as well. All right, so keep the questions coming here. We got about 10 minutes or so keep them coming. All right, yeah, so we've got about 10 minutes or so. I'm just waiting for a question to be asked. So if you got a question, go ahead and post it on there. I do have to go right at 10. So if you got questions, make sure you get them posted on there here as soon as possible so you can get them answered. If not, I may not be able to answer them if you post them with like 1 minute left or something like that. If you're just joining, I'm just waiting for a question to be asked. So if you got one, go ahead and post it on there. All right. So David C says, how much lag or wrist cock do you have when hitting partial wedges? Please demonstrate at 7:30, 9, and 11:30 positions. How vertical or how much spine tilt do you have also? So with these pitch shots, you can be a little bit more vertical with your spine. You don't have to be the 6 to 8 degree angled away and then 6 to 8 degree or really angled away as you're coming in. You're going to be a little bit more vertical as you're coming in, still a little bit angled away, but a little bit more vertical as you're coming in as far as the spine tilt is concerned. Now, as far as wrist hinge for wedges, it's really personal preference. Some people like to have a lot of lag. Some people kind of like to have kind of a dead hands approach, kind of not a lot of lag at all. So if you look at, some players will be kind of in this area as they're coming in and come through, and some players will be kind of like this and coming through. It's really personal preference. What I would do is I'd just find what works best for you. I'd try everything in between. I personally like to have just a little bit of lag because I tend to want to scoop the ball as I come through with my wedges. I tend to want to kind of flip the wrist at it. So if I have a little bit of lag, it makes it easier for me to get my body opening up and clearing out of the way so that I can get some forward shaft lean. That's just my personal preference. So what I'd recommend doing is I'd go out there, take your, if this is your 7:30 swing, take your 7:30 swing, do it with a ton of lag, do it with a ton of lag and release and see how that feels for you. See what kind of, see what that does for you. See how that helps. And then do a 7:30 swing with basically no lag and see what that does, and do everything in between and just find that happy medium that works best for you. There's no right or wrong way there. Now, as far as 11:30 position, that's basically a full swing. So that would be, you would be having your normal lag like you would a 9 o'clock swing. Again, that's going to be it's going to be about right here. That's your 9 o'clock swing. You may have, I typically have a little bit more lag with that 9 o'clock swing than I would with my 7:30 swing, just because it's a longer swing. I'm going to tend to cast the club if I don't get any lag. So I would say the longer the swing is, you're definitely going to want some lag. But if it's these little pitches that are less than 9 o'clock swings, you can get away with kind of a dead, kind of what I call a dead hands approach, where there's just not a lot of hinge back and through at all. It's more just the body rotating and keeping the club moving through. That'd be kind of like how Steve Stricker does his wedges. So that's really personal preference. You have to find what works best for you. But yeah, I would try some where you do a lot of lag, and I would do some where you do a little bit of less lag, a little bit of less lag, a little bit of less lag, and see what works best for you. But yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just a matter of getting in that proper impact position and being able to have control of it. So if you find that when you try the kind of the no lag approach, which is what I tried to do in the past, because I thought maybe I'll have a little bit more control if I don't do any lag. But I found is that if I didn't have any lag, I tend to want to do this through contact. I just couldn't help it. I had to kind of scoop the ball. That's just what I wanted to do. But I find if I have just a little bit of lag here, that helps me to open up and be able to get some forward shaft lean and release that club out in front. That's what works best for me. But like I said, some players might have a little better luck doing it the other way. So just try it, see what works best for you. But I would say if you're in that 9 o'clock or further swing, you're definitely going to want to have some lag in there, because that's pretty darn close to a full swing. Otherwise, you're probably most likely definitely going to scoop through contact. All right, so Gino says, can you talk about grip pressure throughout the swing? Yeah, so basically, and I'm not going to be able to get into any kind of crazy detail on here. I'll tell you where you can find the video for the crazy detail. But grip pressure at address, it's going to be pretty light. So at address, if we're talking out of 10 here, as 10 being the most grip pressure and 0 being, the club's falling out of my hand, it's going to be about a 2, I would say. So that's basically what you're going to be at address. So not holding the club really tightly, it's just going to be about a 2, just enough to basically hold on to it and to be kind of in a relaxed sort of state here. And then as soon as you start that swing, that pressure is going to start going up, because if we try to hold on to it in a 2 throughout the swing, the club's just going to fly out of my hands. So I got to be putting pressure, more pressure into this grip, the more force that's going on. The more speed I have, the more force I got to put into this grip. So as I'm going up to the top, it's getting up to about, 5, 6 as I'm getting up in here. And as I start down, again, I'm getting more and more pressure here. And you're going to feel more pressure in the trail hand right here. Now, it's not pressure to do that. It's just pressure from the club pushing onto the hand here. That's where you're going to feel more in the trail hand as you are coming down, is where you're going to feel a lot of that pressure. And then as you're coming down in the downswing, you're going to feel more pressure in the lead hand as it's pulling it through. And as you come through contact, it's going to be 10 out of 10 pressure in that lead hand. You're going to be holding on to that club basically as hard as you possibly can if you're swinging it with any kind of speed. If you're swinging it without a lot of speed, it's going to be less pressure. But if you think about it, if I were to give this club a 2 out of 10 pressure, even a 5 out of 10 pressure, and I was actually swinging hard as I was coming through impact, this club would just fly right out of my hand. You have to put in enough pressure into the grip to be able to hold on to it. And if you're swinging with speed, it's going to be a lot of pressure. And it's going to be mostly in these first 3 fingers here of that lead hand. So pinky, ring, and middle finger, that's where you're going to be feeling that pressure through contact. That trail hand, it's going to be very, very little pressure through contact. It's basically just kind of along through the ride as you're coming through. In fact, you'll see some tour players where their hand actually kind of comes off of the grip as they're coming through there because they're holding it so lightly. So if you want the video where Clay talks about this in a lot more detail, I'd recommend going to the Crazy Detail Vault and finding that pressure. But that's basically what it comes down to. To make it really, really simple to think about, you're putting enough pressure into the grip throughout the swing so that you can hold on to it. That's all you're trying to do. You're putting enough pressure into this handle so that you can hold on to it. So at address, how much pressure do I need to put into the handle to be able to hold on to it? It's like a 2 out of 10, not very much. As I start the swing, I got to be putting more pressure into this handle to be able to hold on to it. Because if I'm still at 2 out of 10, this is what's going to happen. I'm just not going to be able to hold on to it, right? So as I go to the top, I got to put more pressure into that so that I can control it and hold on to it. And again, it's going to be 3 out of 4 probably as I'm going up to the top. And then as it gets faster, as I go to the top, I'm getting more and more pressure. And as I'm coming down, I got to put a lot of pressure into this handle to be able to hold on to it. The speed is just too much. If I don't have enough force into the handle, the club's just going to fly out of my hand. So that's basically the simplest way to think about it is that you're holding onto the club hard enough or with enough pressure so that it's the minimum amount of pressure that you need to hold on to it. And if you're swinging with it with a lot of speed as you're coming through impact, that's going to be mostly a 10 out of 10 in this lead hand as you're coming through impact. And that's what you need to think about. Now, if you're thinking this trail hand is pushing this club, that's not pressure. Pressure is what you're putting into the handle. This is force going out that way. That's casting. You're going to feel pressure going into your hand from the grip. That's what you're going to feel like as you're coming down in that trail hand. So keep that in mind whenever you're working on these things. But if you want to find that video, go to the Crazy Detail Vault. All you got to do is go to the top of the page there, click the instruction tab. That's going to expand a menu. Then click Vault Videos or Vault Categories. That'll take you to the Vault Categories page. Click the Crazy Detail Vault, and then you'll find the pressure video in there. So how much pressure should I put into the club or pressure throughout the swing? It's not the same throughout the swing. It's not a 2 out of 10. I think that's what people commonly think of, is that it's a 2 out of 10. If it was a 2 out of 10 throughout the swing, man, if you were trying to hold the club like a tube of toothpaste, not to squeeze out the toothpaste, from in the backswing, the club would fly out of your hand. You're not really doing that. The only place you're doing that is really at address. And then as soon as that swing starts, you're starting to put more pressure into it because the forces, the speed goes up. All right. So we're going to go ahead and finish up right there. I got to go right at 10. So thanks, everybody, for joining me this morning. We'll be back here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Or, sorry, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be done at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. All right. So thanks, everybody, for joining me. Excuse me. Sorry, that snuck up on me. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you next time.